Hey everyone, this is John Lai from Evermite, and I also have Eunice, a data analyst that works. She works for a lot of marketing agencies, so a lot of experience there. And recently, we had another question from one of our clients. It was the question was here. Let me just try to pull it up. Um, in Google Analytics, when they look at the organic search, they see the word in brackets "not provided." So what's this "not provided" thing that they see in Google Analytics? So that's kind of the question today. And yeah, we'll break that question up actually to a few more components. So let me give a little bit of background for some of our audience who may not use Google Analytics too much. The idea is that when you use Google Analytics to measure and look at the traffic that comes to your website, one really common and typical thing you do is you look at three sources of traffic, or Google Analytics will tell you what the three sources are. At the high level, there's referral traffic. So you get to see what percentage of your traffic are you getting from referring sites. Like, are people coming to your website from Facebook or YouTube or other social media or a local newspaper, for example? So that's group number one, referral traffic. Group number two is direct traffic, where people actually just type in the URL of your website and they go straight to your website. So that's group number two. And the third group is organic search, where people find your website through search engines, right? They'll type in certain words into Google or Bing or Yahoo search, and they somehow arrive on your site. So those are three groups of traffic. And so some of our clients have asked, when they actually go into the organic search, how come under keywords they see in brackets, the word "not provided"? So what is that? Is it important? And how do uncover what should be provided, right? So maybe Eunice, you worked a lot with Google Analytics, so I'm just curious what your thoughts are. Like, what is this concept of "not provided" to your knowledge?
So not provided is basically when Google kind of hides it because they were using a secure website to get to utilize the website. So if the URL starts with HTTPS instead of HTTP, then Google will actually hide that keyword and so provide it. So unless you've had the paid version of Google Analytics, where you get Google Analytics 360, and then you can actually see all these different keywords. The free version that people typically use on Google Analytics doesn't have that keyword information there. But keywords is still pretty essential, because then if you don't know the types of keywords that people are coming to your website, you don't know whether the kind of organic search traffic that is coming to your website is relevant towards whatever is on your website. So it's hard to do like a proper content strategy for your organic search traffic, especially if a lot of your especially if a lot of your traffic is coming from organic search. It's very critical to know what keywords people are entering either on Google or Bing or wherever to get to your website.
Okay, so you're basically saying that um, at one point in time, under that organic search where it says keywords, you can actually see the types of the keywords people have typed into the search, and it's based on those keywords. That's how they first landed on your website. Is that basically the idea?
Yeah, so if, for example, I go to Google, I type coconut oil, and then if I typed in coconut oil and then I clicked onto your website,
Oh, sorry,
in
might
one of the
repeat the last sentence or so.
So, for example, if I go onto Google and just type in the Google search bar, coconut oil, and then I click onto your website, which is one of the links that shows up, keyword that I've used, which is coconut oil, will show up as the keyword. But if I've gone to your website through an HTTPS site that kind of masks that keyword, then I won't be able to see that keyword coconut oil in Google Analytics, and instead it will say not provided. I do have a paid Google Analytics subscription, then I should be able to see the keyword coconut oil.
I see. Okay, so I guess I remember at one time Google would reveal these keywords, and yeah, because I remember a long time ago I used to see a lot of these keywords in the organic search, but I read that since 2010 or sometime in the last 8 or so years, they decide to start hiding these keywords and you start to encrypt it. And the only way you can really see it now is through, I guess, a new subscription with Google Analytics where they're billing for it, I guess, right?
Mhm. Yeah, I guess that's their way of kind of monetizing their offerings, and also because a lot of ever since 20, I guess 10 or whatever it was, there has been a lot more sites that are made with HTTPS, so like secure sites. Because, for example, if it's an e-commerce site, you definitely have to have HTTPS, where you have to enter in kind of your credit card or personal information. Most of the sites will have an HTTPS site so that they kind of secure the customer information that could be potentially entered onto their website. So ever since then, there also has been a lot more secure sites as well. Another way that you can get that kind of keyword information is to pay for some kind of SEO tool or using an SEM tool. So there are a few tools out there that you can pay for, or if you don't even use it that often, there are some like trial versions or like some free versions that you can use as well, to kind of just see like how your keywords are ranking, and also what keywords people are coming to your website through. Those keywords that people are coming to your website, how do they come to your website versus how do they come to a competitor's website? Do those keywords bring more traffic to your competitor versus you? And then you can also see with those tools like how much it would cost for those keywords too.
How for these types of other tools that help you expose the keywords that come to your website? I guess you'll have to use their platforms to discover that. And how much do you know how much these platforms generally cost, like budget range wise? Is it somewhere between like $2 per month kind of thing to like $50,000 a year? Do you know just a rough ballpark range? Do you know?
I think it really depends what kind of plan you get with them, but I think it's around like a few $100s. One of the ones that I use a lot is SEM Rush.
Mhm.
Really good because it has a lot of rankings within not just your keywords, but with competitors. And then it kind of shows you trends as well. So it's a lot easier for you to understand the landscape that way. It also has like really nice dashboards. I How much it costs, but I believe it was a few $100s per year.
Okay, all right, yeah. So they can be very affordable for established businesses, and I imagine that there could be much pricier tools if you really want to do more complex things and gather more complex information around these keywords. Okay.
But it really depends, I guess how much information you're looking for. There are some really simple ones where it will literally just give you what keywords are coming to your website. Um, Another one that could help, but doesn't give that much extra information, and it's also free, that comes with your Google Search Console. So Google Search Console, it gives you a little bit more information on what keywords people are coming to your website, but it's a little, I wouldn't say it's as um, the data is not all fully there, so you'll only get a sample of it, and it doesn't. I wouldn't say it's that accurate in tracking every single keyword, but it gives you a good kind of idea at least. People are coming to your website.
Right. And I remember you and I were looking at Google Search Console for a few other situations, and I noticed possibly two other drawbacks to Google Search Console, but you have to correct me if I'm wrong. Is one is that it doesn't seem to store too much historical data. It seemed like it only has a maximum maybe 3 months of data. Like if you want to know how popular certain keywords are to land on particular sites, or how popular certain keywords are, you can only look as far back as the last 3 months. I think that was one restriction. And yet another drawback is I remember sometimes it's a little bit clunky to try to set up with your overall Google Analytics and your website. Um, I mean, for I guess people who are more web savvy or tech savvy, they can probably set it up pretty a little more easily. But people who don't really deal with computers all the time, um, they might have a little bit more trouble configuring things. Those that seems to be my experience working with some of the clients. Would you agree with that, or did I make did I say something incorrect there?
So I think it is very like definitely doesn't give you as much information. It's very high level. It gives you like just like top keywords. It is a little bit harder to implement, and to implement properly as well. And it's kind of more like a starting point. It's more just to figure out like what are the generic topics that people are coming to your website. But if you wanted to say like pinpoint certain time periods, it's kind of hard to find as well. And then if you also wanted to know like other kind of fruitful information about like how it's those keywords are doing for your competitors, or how much is it costing if I wanted to pay for that kind of keyword, or like where is that keyword driving to, like which page it's driving to, it doesn't really give you that information either. But like a starting point of here's the generic topics that people are coming to your website.
Okay, yeah, I think that's great. I talked with some other clients and associates. They used to have a little, it's not the best, but what they might do is a lot of their web pages, their URLs, they would have very nice descriptors, right? Like let's say on their URL, it might be like mywebsite.com slash favorite big hamburger joints in Toronto. So their URLs are very URL friendly or SEO friendly. And by designing URLs like that, and then they look at Google Analytics to see what are their, what do you call it, the initial top level landing pages. So when people come to your site, what's the first page they enter? Google Analytics will at least tell you that. So if you see, let's say, a lot of people are just landing on your favorite burger joints in the city, and that's the way you've structured your URLs as well, and your content is around that. And some people can start to infer that maybe the popular words that people are stumbling on are like burgers and favorite and local favorite burgers, something like that. Not the best, but it gives some clarity as well. And I mean, do you think that's a good approach, or do you think that it's flawed in certain ways?
I think it does help to kind of give a basis of what popular items on your website are working. But then in terms of like actually substantially knowing what is the thing that drove people to your website, um, it doesn't give that much detail. Like for example, maybe there was on your page one particular, like if we're talking about like restaurants, you name that was it, but you wouldn't know that kind of information if you didn't have the keywords. You wouldn't know that like a lot of people are coming to that page specifically because of that one restaurant that you named. So if you knew that, then you could even write more posts about that restaurant, about like, I don't know, their food quality or their experience there, or like you can expand more onto that topic. So I think by knowing more, it's actually in terms of building extra content in the future as well.
Right. Okay. Yep. Yeah, I think that sounds great. I think, yeah, I think that's a very good point you made, that sometimes what you write in the URL or just a subject line, you might not be able to infer what keywords are, especially if you've written about a really good restaurant, and just that one restaurant that you mentioned in your article is why everyone's going to it. Right. Okay. It also kind of made me think about something else that I tell some of our clients is, I guess it's no surprise that for a lot of B2B websites, maybe 30, 50, 60, or close to 90% of the traffic, the first point of entry is the main homepage. And they still might get really high organic search. And I think some people don't distinguish between a branded keyword search versus just searching on other keywords. Branded keyword search being like, let's say people are typing in the name of your company into Google search, and it's probably because of those keywords. So let's say your company is called George's Pizza Store, right? Or George's Pizza Restaurant. People are actually typing George's Pizza Restaurant into Google search, and that's why they're probably landing on your. So the first point of entry is most likely going to be the homepage. So you're going to get a lot of organic traffic to your website from people who just typed in George's pizza restaurant. And I find this is important because it's not really, you may not actually be winning new customers. They're not like conquest customers. These are people who already know who you are, and they're just typing in your name to figure out what the URL for your website is. Whereas if they typed up something else instead, best pepperoni pizza in the Little Italy village. Um, and then they find you on that. That's like those people are probably new customers with a new mindset, or they're looking for new places to explore. So I find that just because you have high organic traffic, it it's pretty. I mean, it's useful to know what are those words that they're finding you on. Are they using words that kind of already let you know that they already know about you and they're just trying to find your website, or are people finding you based on completely new words, uh, or these are people that never knew who you were in the first place, and they found you based on Google search by searching other word keywords. Do you think that makes sense? It's something I tell my clients, but do you would you agree with that, or do you feel like there might be a better approach to something like this?
I agree with that too. I think another layer to put onto that is in Google Analytics, there's a metric called new versus returning users, whether you can actually see whether the person that came to your website through that keyword is like a new person or a returning user. And then you can also see the like if they're a returning user, whether they go through like even more pages, what do they other things do they do versus like somebody who's new. Maybe they don't really spend much time. They come to your website and then they actually leave or something like that. So it's actually good to look at this metric as well. And then you can also segment new and returning users and see their behaviors and see whether they website differently.
Okay, and I kind of have a follow-up question to that. You might, if we don't know the answer, we can or we can always discuss in a second question if it ends up being a long one, is how does Google know if someone is a new user or if it's a returning user? Because if, at one time, everyone kind of just used cookies. So as soon as you clear your browser's cookie, Google might not really know if you're a new user or a returning user. But I'm guessing that now that it seems like everyone tends to have a Gmail account of some kind, that maybe Google is using that to track. So you could be on your desktop computer, you visit the site, you're a new user, but if you're using your tablet at home to visit the site again, I would imagine that Google's smart enough to realize that you're a returning user, even though you've never visited it from your tablet device. Uh, is that right,
Yeah,
or do you?
that's totally correct. So basically, every time you enter a site, go anywhere, Google always gives an ID called a GA ID to everybody, whether it be through like some kind of cookie. And then you're absolutely right. If they're using the same Google search console, logged in through both their laptop, their phone, and their tablet devices, they will always link that up together. So afterwards on AdWords, see whether that person uses a mobile to a mobile and then purchases or does an action, or they move from like the laptop to the mobile or tablet, and then they can actually see like kind of, they call it cross conversion paths. So you can actually see like not only through like one point and one time period and one device, you can see it through multiple devices, how the journey is transitioning or behaving, or when they're actually doing a purchase or the next step that you've outlined.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so yeah, I think that's really cool. So I think we kind of covered a lot of these ideas around why keywords are important and how they can be used to determine how people are finding your site. Kind of helps you decide if they're new versus returning users. Or now you have a couple of ways to decide, or two out of many ways to determine if the people discovering your site are new users or returning users. Um, yeah, I feel like we kind of covered this question pretty nicely. Eunice, do you have any kind of final thoughts to add to this?
Mm, no, not really.
Okay, all right, yeah. So, so I think this we'll kind of conclude this question. If anyone has any other questions that they want to ask, feel free just leave it in the comments or send us an email. All right. Okay. See ya.